Hello, the Dirt Journal. Let's see if I can cover a couple of different things here. Moisture loss in your soil, as we'll go over many times in the future. And once again, here is your greatest loss, and it's one of your biggest adversaries. So in nature, there's either constant duff falling down because the canopy is so thick that it can't support any undergrowth, so it has constant leaf fall, or it has sunlight and there's some sort of layers of life and undergrowth. Bare disturbed dirt leaks the most water. You can think of it as an open wound, just evaporating away water into the open air, so it's the hardest to keep wet. So plants and ground cover create this low area of shade, which holds moisture in itself, so it'll always stay damper under plants. So if you can plant closely together. One of the issues that can arise from that is that you can get a lot of pests if you're an organic gardener, so you have all sorts of life and insects going on, and it can be too much good coverage, let's say, too much good hideouts if you have living ground cover. So straw and other things, other mulches, other top dressings are some of the ways that people have come up with to cover the soil and not have to have living. See, here we're using purslane, but what came into it was some little beetles that now are eating the actual broadleaf vegetables. And since we're not going to eat this, we're going to get rid of it. But that leads us to the next issue. We've disturbed the soil, we've pulled a weed. You could actually snip that to where it's dead, leave the roots if you wanted to be perfect so that they stayed. But we're not going to go into that right now. Now, if I left this, it would just evaporate away. So you want to bring in some other organic. I say bring in loosely because I prefer to use the closest source, which is local. If you can take what's in the footprint and give it right back, that's perfect. Here we've used some sunflower pieces. My rule is the bigger the material, the smaller the piece. I just cut it up with my shears, lay it out, stomp it down. It will dry out, act just like a straw. So my favorite organic materials are ones that don't have any seeds in them, so that you're not going to get things that you don't want sprouting in your bed, because anything in the wrong place can be an undesirable. So you can see I've just used that. The poppies that were around, we're going to cut down to where they're just perennials. You can see some here, and that will sprout back out, but their bodies will lay down, and that's another seedless straw. So all this you can walk on. I like to press it flat, bruise it up, so that there's no real hidey spot, but it will create a layer. When you pull this back, it'll be moist under here instead of all dried out. The solarization from the sun, the UV rays isn't killing off all of your microorganisms, which are beneficial, and you've opened it up. The airflow between your plants is better. So a tangle is always nice, but if you find that your thick planting is too thick and it's creating undesired balance of insects, you can thin out. And then after you've thinned out, after you've pulled stuff, we're just going to leave our kales and stuff here, but there'll be all this open ground that we're not going to replant right now because it's late in the season. And we'll take that area and we'll do the same as we did here and cover it up so it's not exposed, because there's a lot of life right here right now. If you were to look at it under a microscope, it's teeming. And what you don't want to do is just let this sit here and bleed its water like an open vein, hemorrhage out, and have all of your life retreat deep down into the soil. You want it to be as full as maximum. These are the roots of the plants, and they're here using all of the wet, fertile space that they can. So this is a way to keep that up. If you plant and you have a fertile ground and you are not using poisons to kill off insects, which we do none of here. This is that same area I just removed the purslane. We'll be focusing now on the kale and stuff that's actually going to live, that were little things that we put in here that we're kind of getting overwhelmed. So that's where companion planting can go a little awry. Plus, like I was saying, totally organic, so we're getting some insect. So you got to choose your level of what's edible to you. That's fine, we'll eat the rest. But you'll see me going through right now and I'm stripping off the base. It's because we've had a little infestation and I want to create this open area where all of the predatory insects can come and get stuff. That's one of the major deterrents that you need to use. And I don't mean barren and open. That is the point of laying down the top cover so that you have, I'll show you, we'll get another shot somewhere and we'll lift up underneath some of this and it's all worms and bugs, fertility, moisture, and you have complete life going on, but in a real flat, dead, controlled layer where your plants can stick up above it and they're not having to deal with any of the insects. Just the little bugs that are living on these old sunflower leaves here too close. So I want to get rid of them, strip it back. We're going to let the old sunflower finish out, but see all the ground exposed. Well, and that would dry out. That would actually not benefit the plant. So we need to get back some sort of cover. Since we're not going to plant desirable ground cover that's super short and perfect for this, we don't have time this season, we're going to use dead material. We are in this type of zone, so we are the wet spot out here. This will occur to you often if you're pioneering an area. And so it means that you're the target. Everything around there that could, good and bad, that could like a wet spot that's fertile and full of stuff will come to you. This is everything green, everything that can be eaten. On this property they have chickens, so it's part of like the buffalo theory. We're using every single part and we're trying not to haul things very far, so it'll go right over to the animals. Anything that gets too big that isn't a seed project, and it clears out the ground. So now you can actually start to see through here. Same thing with a predator and with the prey, which can be your negative insects you don't like. They have to hide more. They can't just be hanging out partying down and the predators can cruise through here. The only thing you have to deal with is that ground cover once again. So there's a solution. Use anything local that's not covered in horrible seeds. The lighter the better, so it'll break down. You can see things like flowers make the perfect stuff. The seeds from these are long gone and it's like a hay, but with no seeds left. You can get grass seeds from your hay. That's the only thing I'd want to caution you against in using hay and straw. Is that's part of what destroyed California's wildflowers, was those very same oats and grasses. So you might not want to repeat the pattern in miniature if you've done all of your time making a beautiful little spot. There's so many other organic things, everything, a leaf, a petal, a flower. Each thing will give you different positive volatiles, hardly any negatives. And yeah, the bigger, the smaller the pieces. And you can break it down first, you can do whatever you want. Right here, let me show you this, as I stripped away bad old leaves. These are cabbage moth worms. They're the little white butterflies that you see around, and they're the main culprits for eating through your kale. That's what's making the little holes. Here's one of them on there. So I'm actually not going to, these will go to the chickens. They will eat them, and there'll be protein, is how I'll explain that. So everything circle around on the footprint as close as possible. Here, you see a little spider. Now look at his domain. That's all that he has to patrol. I dare you to be a little bug there now. And strip away the old. Leave on your plants only what you're actually going to eat and what's new and coming out. They start in the center, and the oldest on the outside. You'll find a lot of your negative insects are living on your oldest weak leaves. So that's another thing you can do. I'll show you this after we put the ground cover on there, and I got to get back to work. Here's that same bed as we started to get it covered up. And I know this might seem strange to some of you to not compost it, but you are composting it. And because there's so much ground contact, you'll actually see things decompose and turn into dirt quicker. And your worm barrel, your worm project, and your composting project all actually occurs right in your place. And stuff this big will dry out. Next time you crunch on it, it'll be nothing dust. It's okay to walk on it a little bit. You're not trying to compress your soil, but the amount of sponginess that you just added into it can stand a little bit of walking on. And then when it's dry, you're going to wet it again and walk on it, and you'll see it paste together, almost like making paper out of flowers or something. And you can top dress this with a little dirt and watch it go even quicker, just dryly scatter over there. So it's a really, really good technique. And you're just using your materials right off the plants a lot of times. I took all the dead lower leaves of these sunflowers, dropped them right down in there, and you can see you can get artistic with it if you want, do patterns. It's a good, you know, it's a good chance to really get into it. And it's a technique that I promise you will pay off immensely. It'll increase your fertility rates and your moisture levels by if you were at 100% and it started drying out and it went down, you actually now are at 110% of life and fertility and moisture in your bed. So it's a good thing to do, trust me. I like to face all my buds one way. And since you're starting with the thickest part, these are going to be your smallest pieces. Go ahead, I use Baco Pradines. You need yourself a good set of shears, and you need to keep them sharp, and you need to learn to not cut your hand off, just like when you're cooking and you're using real knives. So there's techniques. You want to keep your fingers folded away, and you want to give yourself space. Go ahead and give yourself space. There's no reason to cut up here. Move your bite back on your hand where you're holding it. And there's no reason to get that close. And so the bigger it is, the closer together I cut it, so it's smaller pieces. You see, I'm just going to make a pile below. That's what we're going to spread out. So, now we have a pile of bare dirt that we're going to cover up. If you just use big chunks of straw or material or whatever you're using, the animals, the water, the moisture, the fungus isn't going to be able to break it down and destroy it as quick. And you might actually end up creating a place where more creatures hide that you didn't want. So that's why I break it up. Now again, you're not trying to make dust, because that's never the point. Nothing likes dust. So I've chosen a size that I know that for this type of material will work well. It'll break down quick. Things that are almost crumbling in your hands, given a few weeks and some water and sun, will turn gray and break down. That's why whole fields of grass disappear before your eyes and turn into new green sprouts. It's the same mechanism. You just got to do it in your yard. You're going to weave it around your plants. Make sure there's no bare dirt exposed. You're creating the same amount of shade that you had before, but you are making it in a way to where it's not a habitat for anything you don't want. And so here's a good look at that bed. It's all cleaned out. If you want to, when you go to put plants in, scatter some dirt over this once it's laid down nice and flat for a few days. Scatter some dirt over it. I'll use some here. Okay, so it's going to work like your cardboard. It's your layer. You're going to dig down through this to the other dirt, and you're going to plant. And look at that. That's such a nice just mixture. And when it's stirred in like that, like I was saying, you could take dirt right now and spread it over all this a little bit. And you're going to create a layer that's just impermeable to the sunlight and holds moisture and starts a whole compost lasagna layer thing going on. Even in your littlest beds, you could do this in the top of your little potted plants. So that is a form of just localized, instantaneous top dressing, mulching, composting in place. Carrot seeds. See how many you get? That's from letting one carrot go. Each one of these will be an individual carrot seed. So you could probably even take a carrot that still has green on it from a store, plant it, let it go to seed. And let me show you. What you're seeing here is one carrot, or maybe two. See their bases? So they've gone to seed. That's how many tops it'll have on it. Blooming, half ready, finished. Take that whole thing off, put it down into a bag. Look at how many. Okay, so you're talking a grocery bag. You can fill 2 quart jars, like probably a quart jar at least, off of each carrot. And so that's what we do. You release some of them, go to bloom. You can see she's got, these are lettuces. That's one lettuce plant. And in this bed I use sunflower body parts here. You can see that. It's got a shade cloth on it. Cleaned it up. One of the rules here, sunflower leaves. They're big and flat, so you can lay them there. They turn to dust. There's more there. One of the rules is if there's an infestation on a leaf, I do not use it directly under the same plant. Oh, here's a good example. So right there is predatory wasp, and he's going after, or she is going after whatever was in that plant. There's another one there. And now, where this was totally crowded and clogged up and things were having a heyday and they had the canopy to hide under, now the airborne insects and everything else can get to them. So I just wanted to add this onto the video. One of the good green mulches that I've discovered that's seedless is I live on a little creek, and no one is ever bothered by you removing pond scum. And it is one of the richest, most fertile. It's just as rich, if not more fertile than seaweed, and of course there's no salt or anything that you have to deal with. So I'm just going to bring a rake down, and I rake that all into a pile and haul it up and place it around my plants. So it looks like after all cleaned out, got just a little dam with an open spillway so this stuff can still lather up. It creates this little back pool here. It's all cleared out again. This is what I've gathered to bring up to put in some raised beds. Not you, little ladybug, but everything else. And you can see it is just a mixture of everything in the world. So, that's good stuff. And wait till you see the critters come up and eat it. So we'll bring that up in a tarp and spread it around. And it's my favorite top dressing. So, if ever there was a secret I was going to show you, that's the one.